All right, guys, here we go. I'm gonna try something new here today. I'm gonna take you guys on my bike ride. I've rigged up this apparatus around me in order to allow you guys to kind of see what I got going on here. And what I want to do is I am headed over right now. First of all, it's October 31st. Fall is definitely here. And today, being the 31st, is officially Halloween. And so to all those that celebrate this day of souls or whatever it is, happy Halloween to you guys. And man, the wind is crazy out here right now. You can see all the leaves behind me falling down. But what I wanted to talk about today is I want to discuss, I'm actually headed over to the election spot out here in Virginia to drop off my ballot. So November 2nd is next week. Is that Tuesday? I think it is. I think it's, maybe it's November 4th. But Tuesday is election day across most of the country. And one of the big things out here that's happening is our gubernatorial race is on fire. So it's gotten a lot of national attention. And so I'm going to be headed over to drop my ballot off in person. So I just want to make sure that my voting, counts and that it ends up in the right hands as possible. And so some of the things that's caused national attention out here in our election is, I think this will be the first, there's only two candidates right now that are running. We got Spanberger and Sears. So Spanberger is the on the blue team, and we got Sears on the red team. So, and of course, in any competition, there's always going to be opponents, and that's how that all, falls out there. So, and there's been a big controversy in the election. I think everybody's aware of it. Jay Jones, he had sent text and was talking about, the joy and pleasure that he might experience in personally unaliving the Speaker of the House at the time. I think was Republican. So, and he had a chance, I guess, to stop, with some warning, but he carried on. And, there's not really any reason to go into all the details. I think everybody pretty much is aware. But watching the election, not the election, but let's see if I can get around this car over here. Let's see here. It's kind of crazy. Hang on a second. Okay, wow. All right. I'm in the construction zone over here by the Diamond. But back to what I was saying. So one of the big questions was in the debate was, would Spanberger more or less denounce herself and, distance herself from Jay Jones? But, I think a lot of times you're going to experience a lot of doublespeak in politics. So no difference there. And she didn't necessarily answer the question, but, all good. So people are going to do what they need to do. And It's not common right now, no matter what the circumstances are. And I think you guys can see from both sides that people will always stand by the side of their party or their team. So not to be unexpected. And like I said, and actually let me say this, the whole reason for this conversation is not to express my opinion, and it's not designed to tell you who to vote for or if you should be on the blue team, the red team, any of that stuff. Make up your own mind, make up your own decisions, and do what you need to do. All I want to do is just talk about what I went through here to try to get to this moment to be able to ride over and cast my ballot for the state of Virginia. You know, so like I said, that's what happened, and the race out here is heating up. At one point, I think Spanberger had a really big lead, but after the debate, and I encourage you guys, you know, it's very easy when you're watching politics and sound bites and all that stuff to get caught up in a few words here and there and then try to base an opinion. I would like to discourage you guys from doing that and going and finding the original source document or video or whatever it might be, and watch the whole thing for yourself and see what it says. So I didn't watch the gubernatorial debate as it was happening, but what I did do was I went back afterwards and watched the whole thing on YouTube. And so I can see how folks, and I think people oftentimes, you know, make up their own mind and they try to find reasons to, you know, justify, you know, how they feel. And that's fine. You know, do what you got to do. Nothing wrong with that. You know, but I like to say, like I said, I like to go and look at the source. And when I watched the debate, it was very interesting. There very much was a contrast in the two styles. And I think plenty of videos have been made that talk about, you know, putting the individual politician into the worst light possible. Like I said, that's to be expected, you know, but the main point here is to take the time to go out, and if you're not sure, find the source document and here, hang on, let me adjust my light here. Find the source document and come up with your own opinion. Definitely worth doing. So, and so like I said, I watched the debate. I watched all the material that came along afterwards, and I'll tell you this. Ultimately, whoever wins this race and whoever the people of Virginia choose, it's all going to come down to a bathroom usage issue. That's going to be probably the primary driver. So should everybody be allowed to use a bathroom, or should it be restricted to a certain group of people to use those bathrooms? And like I said, I'm not going to express my opinion one way or another, but this is something that's helpful for you to try to determine how you should vote and which way you should vote also as well. So that all comes down to a policy issue. So let me see where I need to go here real quick. All right, I think I need to go down this way here. So let me see here. I got to go down to Leahy Street. I think I got to go down a little bit further. So let me go down this way down here, get down here to the spot. So here we go, still writing. So like I said, that's probably going to be the primary issue that's going to divide people, and a lot of the rhetoric on both sides and the ads that are being placed and being ran and a lot of things that are being talked about in all the forums, you know, Facebook and all that stuff, a lot of it comes down to that particular issue. And so in my fight to try to figure out who to vote for, the thing I do is And like I said, I am completely dissatisfied, as I think most Americans are, with this current political system. All good. It's still democratic. Some people will debate that. You're able to vote and make a choice. But in the end, it's a competition. One side wins and the other side loses. So, and yeah, there's not much we can really do about it. I think, and if you know me and you've had a chance to talk to me, you know that I rail against both teams, the red side as well as the blue side. And I think a lot of people have a lot of dissatisfaction with both sides. But, and I really honestly would hope one day that we're able to have a three-party system which will allow something more maybe towards the center. But the way the founders set everything up, our political system is really a winner-take-all. There's no partial credit. So if you're not able to win the majority, that's it. You've essentially lost. So do I think ever they will have a three-party system in the United States? No, I really doubt it. I doubt that it will ever happen. So, and the thing is, you can be completely upset about our political system, as a lot of people are, and you can decide to say negative stuff about both sides. That's easy to do. Very, very easy to do. And so, and I'll give you an example. If you take a look recently, there's Donald Trump and Letitia James. So she led the charge against him for mortgage fraud. And so he was eventually found guilty. And that's kind of a talking point that people use all the time, talking about that he's a convicted felon. All good. That's the justice system. That's how it works. But now, whether it's politically motivated or not, you know, we'll just assume that it is, and at the same time, we'll assume that it isn't. You know, on the flip side, Letitia James just got recently indicted on mortgage fraud. The same thing that she pushed to get Donald Trump indicted on was mortgage fraud. So she's strong for the blue team, and Trump is strong for the red team. So if you're looking at the same type of issue or problem, both sides of the coin have done the same thing. Now, at this point, nothing's happened with Letitia. She hasn't gone to trial. All good. At some point down the road, she'll have her day in court. She'll be able to present the evidence, and then a jury of her peers will ultimately make the decision if she's guilty or not. So I'm not trying to interpret that. I'm not trying to get involved in that any kind of way. I'm just essentially saying, you know, two opponents are essentially being brought up or have been brought up on the same identical charges. So what can you do about that? Nothing. And I'll tell you, like I said earlier, it's significant, the election out here, and it's gotten a lot of a national attention out here in Virginia. And I'll tell you, and Virginia is a Republican state ran right now by the governor, and a lot of the policies that him and his crew and Sears as lieutenant governor have put into play, which is an exact, opposite of what you're going to find with Spears, of course. And I'll tell you, and I think a lot of people have benefited from the Republican system that they have out here in the place. And I'll tell you, right now, how you doing? Right now with the SNAP benefits that are coming to an end tomorrow, I think, and I've looked online, and so throughout the United States, there's millions of people that are receiving SNAP benefits, and we are the only state that's actually funding dollar for dollar based upon what people normally receive for the SNAP benefits. I've seen a number of things that have come up. I think there's probably a total of 8 or 9 states, maybe a little bit less, but we'll use a larger number for the benefit of the doubt, that are going to step in and try to assist. But ultimately, most of them are only providing a small Band-Aid for what is actually needed. And so I took a look at the numbers and did some simple math based upon what the commitments are and versus how many people in most of their states that are on the SNAP benefits. The majority of the benefits that folks will receive is going to be roughly about, and I'll be generous here, about $20. And so there may be some additional private stuff in the future, some additional stuff in the future that comes from governmental, but most of the amounts that they've pledged that they will provide for folks with SNAP benefits, if you take the amount that they're going to provide and the individual states through public and private partnerships, most of them equal out to about, realistically, $10 that will be distributed to each individual person that's a SNAP recipient, all the way up to about 15 on the high end. It's not much. And I'll tell you, out here in Virginia, I Googled it. Out here in Virginia, there is the number of people that they have that are on the SNAP program, and you take the average amount that people receive, which is about $245. The amount that folks are going to get on average is roughly about, the amount that it pencils out to every month is $192 million that the state of Virginia said that they will step in and then they will prop up the benefits dollar for dollar with the hopes one day of getting reimbursed from the United States government. So we're the only state that's done that. And like I said, we're Republican ran. And I'll tell you, well, I think we have right now a $10 billion surplus. And so even if they provided SNAP benefits for 5 months, hopefully we don't go that long. It's only $1 billion. We still have a $9 billion left in surplus. And the other thing that they've done recently is we got a rebate in the mail of $200. Me and my wife each got one for filing our taxes last year. And so they're trying to return some of the surplus back to the people. So, is it better to have a Republican governorship or a Democratic? I'll leave that up to you to decide. All I'm talking about is what I've noticed being out here. And there is a difference in being in a Republican-ran state versus being in California. There's a lot of obvious differences. I'm not going to talk about those. I mean, you guys are smart enough to figure all that out. So ultimately, in the end, am I telling you to vote for the red side? Nope. Am I telling you to vote for the blue side? Nope. Make your own decision. But like I said, there's been a lot of national tension that's kind of been taking place out here. So ultimately, in the end, and this is kind of what I want to talk about. Ultimately, in the end, there's only really 4 choices that we have when it comes to trying to vote. So you can vote for the red team, you can vote for the blue team, you can vote independent, or you can decide to sit the whole thing out of disgust and protest. At the worst case scenario, the other reason might be you just don't vote at all. It's not significant to you, you just leave it alone. You feel like you might leave it to those that may know better. So those are really only your only 4 choices that you have when it comes to voting. So, and of course, you can, within those strategies, you can use the blue method where you just vote blue down ballot. The other option is to vote red down ballot. or a combination of the two. But what I've done in the past is, and actually before I say that, let me just say this. Within the governor's race out here in Virginia, like I said, you have the red side, the blue side. There was an independent that popped up. I forgot what her name was. I think it was Donna Charles. And so I think she had a really good story that was compelling behind her, how there was like some fraud and manipulation. She got bumped off the ballot, but she was coming strong. And during tax season, I literally spent about 2 days deep diving into her and what she had to say. And I think you should do this with all the candidates that are, and it's a smart way to go about this whole process, considering what we're up against. So I spent two days deep diving, watching all of her videos, watching all of her interviews, and going through her website. And this is during tax season, so I'm trying to keep my mind going and taking little breaks here and there, but it was nice to listen to something. So I listened to everything, and what she was talking about was utopia. It was kind of a combination of the red side and the blue side, but kind of walking a very careful, fine line down the middle. And so the thing was, in my search and for discovery, I was really trying to figure out where she stood on specific policies. They weren't on her website at all. She didn't mention anything really inside of the videos. It was kind of a combination of, we got to come together and work together. That's all cool. But, it wasn't enough meat for me to be able to make a decision to vote for her. But I was really happy and satisfied that it seemed like that there was potentially a better alternative or another alternative to that. But like I said, it was feelings over policies, and a lot of it was in reference to Donald Trump or, also, but she said she worked, under his administration because she had worked in Washington. And then she also talked about how she worked under the Biden administration as well. So she was capable of maneuvering through both camps, which is great. So it was a breath of fresh air. But the sad thing was, as I was looking at her more, they had the Spanberger Sears debate. And I think the next day or two, I was looking at Facebook, and she made some comments about but about Sears, which is the red team, and said that she kept cutting her off, and because of that, she throws all of her support behind Spanberger. And I was like, oh man. And I was like, I almost typed a comment and said, hey, does this mean that you're tapping out of the race? And so I went and looked at her website. She did a public release, and ultimately in the end, she tapped out of the race, and she threw her support behind Spanberger. And I think because she was such a viable alternative, and some of the early numbers that were coming in, they were showing that people were choosing the independent. And if people chose the independent and as an alternative, because the red side, a lot of them are going to vote for the red side no matter what. And a lot of blue people are going to vote for the blue side no matter what. But I think there was enough folks that were dissatisfied with the blue side that they were starting to slide a little bit more towards the middle, the independent side. And then that would have definitely tanked Spanberger. And so did she make a call, and did they negotiate and say, hey, you have to drop off the ticket because it's going to, regardless, if you get a bunch of votes, I'm not going to win and the other side's going to win. And so I think she had to make a tough decision. Like I said, this is all speculation. This is all my opinion. But the way that she threw her weight behind Spanberger, it kind of gives you pause a little bit. And that really created an additional piece of information for me when it comes to trying to figure out politics on how to go about this difficult thing and choosing who to vote for. And I'll be here in a few minutes. And so I think the question is, if you are looking at policies and procedures and there's independents that are in the race, I think the most important question to ask them is that if they tapped out of the race, what side would they throw their support behind? Are they going to throw it behind the red team or the blue team? And if they're going to throw it behind the blue team, that's cool. That's fine. That's okay. And if they're going to throw their support behind the red team, that's fine also as well. But you just have to kind of confirm that whatever the support's going to be, that you can back that up with policies. And so that's definitely a tool that I had never envisioned and thought about, but it became very much apparent. So in the future, if I'm looking at independent candidates and I'm doing a deep dive to try to figure out who to vote for and who I shouldn't vote for, I'm going to try to see if I can figure out who they would endorse, because a lot of the independents, they do fall out of the races for whatever reason, but find out who, and then everybody seems like these days that when they do fall out of the race, they always endorse. So if they're on the red side, they're going to vote they're going to endorse the other red candidate. If they're on the blue side, they're going to endorse the other blue candidate. That's just natural. But I think the variable these days is the independents, when they do make their run for it, to try to figure out who they will ultimately endorse when it's all said and done. So these are the final thoughts I have here. So in these difficult times, when it comes to voting, who should you vote for? I can't tell you which way to go, but this is what I've done. Like I said, there's really 4 options: red team, blue team, independent, or not vote at all. And I tell you, I have been at the point in my life recently in the last 8 years or so where I was just like, funk it, I'm not voting at all. This whole thing needs to crash and burn. But I think that was just kind of a temporary state of mind. I needed to mature beyond voting for just a color or a team, and I needed to figure out a way to try to make this possible, that at least with the information that I have, at least I can ultimately make a good decision. And ultimately, it's not one of those situations where I'm trying to, it's Niners versus Raiders, right? Raiders ride or die, Niners ride or die, or, Crips and Bloods, you're either on the blue side, the red side. I'm trying to be intelligent by this thing, and I think a lot of people are also realizing the same thing as well. So what you have to do ultimately is you have to look at all the policies that are most important to people. So that can be, I'm not going to say all of them, but it can be gun control, it can be women's rights, it can be, a number of other things that we're all familiar with. And regardless of who the candidate is, you should have a stance on all these positions. And so there's really only 3 choices. You either strongly believe, like let's use pew control. So it's either you are for it, or you're against the First Amendment, or you're for it or against it, or you're neutral. And so if it's really a diehard issue for you, you have to make sure that you have that listed as a critical item. That's something that you can't compromise on. And then let's say for whatever reason, it's not that big of a deal, and you can consider that to be a neutral issue where one way or another doesn't make a difference. And if you're one of the people that opposes it and they feel that there needs to be more rules and regulations behind it, of course you're going to oppose pew control altogether. So you go through the whole list of different policies, voting points, talking points. It's probably maybe 20 to 25, and you come up with your list of if you're for, against, or you're neutral. And then from that point, you want to take your time and look at all the candidates. Look at the candidates on the red side, look at the candidates on the blue side, and try to figure out who comes closest to your match of where you feel for your policies. And you got to also remember too, as time goes on, your policies that you believe in strongly, they may eventually become neutral, and then at some point they may be one of the things you might be against. So under every election cycle, you want to kind of go back through and readdress where you kind of stand, and keep a note in your iPhone or whatever the Android equivalent is. That way you can always go back and kind of reference it in the future. And then from that point, go through and get to know all the candidates on both sides, and figure out what they stand for, what they don't stand for, and then at that moment, match the candidate up to your policies that you have. And if you can find one that's close to it, that's probably the one that you should vote for. And like I said, in Virginia right now, we have the governor, we have the lieutenant governor, we have the attorney general. Just don't assume that everybody on one side of the team, the red or blue side, they all feel the same. So you have to take your time and go through each one and figure out where they stand and make a decision. And it's also helpful to watch the debates, but you got to be careful. A lot of the debates are political theater, and it's designed to create sound bites and entertain you and all that as well, and have something to talk about on Monday when you go back to work. But you have to move beyond that, and you can't say, well, I'm gonna, in this particular case of the lieutenant, not the lieutenant, but the governor of Virginia. One was quiet a lot of times, the other one was speaking out, maybe out of turn. And so you don't want to say, well, because one particular candidate was silent all the time, that's the one I'm against. And you can't say, well, because one was speaking out all the time and interrupting, that's the one that I'm not going to vote for. That's very juvenile in a way. You have to really, like I said, when you look at, the situation with mortgage fraud, the indictments and all that, both sides are more than capable of doing the same thing. So a lot of this stuff you have to kind of move beyond and try to focus as much as you can on policies and procedures. And then from that particular point, line that up with your candidates, and hopefully you'll be able to decide on who you can actually vote for. So, like I said, there's no rocket science in this. This is what I've had to evolve through in my life. And like I said, at this point now, I am against both sides, but I feel we need to have a three-party system. But in my lifetime, that's never going to happen at all. Everything's been set up before, like I said, in order to have the winner take all. And it is what it is. What can you do? And so ultimately in the end, we have to respect that we have a democratic system where you do have a say in who gets voted for. And if your team does not win, I know it's very easy to get upset, but you have to also look at, a lot of times, and this is one of the things when Trump won this time around, I had posted on Facebook. I said, under the circumstances, Trump in the United States had built a better political product that spoke to a greater majority of people than what the political product was that the blue team built. And so I hoped that in the next 8 years, or not next 4 years, that the Dems go back and do some soul searching on the blue side and look at where they stand and try to see if they can come up with a better political product that would, ultimately lends itself to people, and they would be able to get a greater chance of having folks, vote for them. So it is what it is. And my hopes are that down the road that the blue side will build a better political product, because it appears at this point now that the political product that's been created by the red team, the majority of people, and all it takes is, one person over 50% to make it the majority, so over time, hopefully, with the next election cycles that are coming, that the blue team can do a better job of finding a viable candidate that speaks to a greater majority of folks and has a good track record, has good policies and good things that are in place, has got a great record. That way they can ultimately appeal to a greater majority of people. And if that's the case, they win, and it's up to them. It's up to everybody else to ultimately deal with and accept it, but that's not the way life works, and that is what it is. So like I said, be sure to participate in this election cycle, and I'm pulling up here to the spot where I actually kind of pulled over here real quick to kind of finish this video. So like I said, this video is not designed to be political. I'm not here to try to push anybody's buttons. More than one thing can be true at the same time. I'm just trying to let you guys know that everything that everybody is going through right now, I've gone through it also as well. And I just want to share with you guys what I've done in my life to try to make sure that I can ultimately, find a way to get through this. And at some point down the road, like I said, in the future, things may change, my opinion may change, and you know, it is what it is. But let me go ahead and let me turn the camera around real quick. I'm pulling into the spot where you can put your drop off your ballot. As you can see here, there's a ton of folks that are got their signs up, and you can only do it within a certain distance of the actual polling spot. So you can see Spears, you can see Spanberger, you can see all the Winsome, you know, you can see all the signs here that are up for the different people that are running for office out here in Virginia. Like I said, this is going to be a incredible election cycle, and we'll find out where everything falls, you know, next Tuesday. But I wanted at least, you know, as I drive over here to drop off my ballot, I wanted to let you guys know kind of where I stand and how I feel about everything. And ultimately, in the end, you know, we got to figure out a way to keep it moving regardless of what happens. And my heart goes out to everybody that ends up on the wrong side of any decision that happens. But like I say all the time, we each have to take care of ourselves first, take care of the people around us second, and just brace for impact, because ultimately in the end, nobody's coming to save any of us at all. So take care, guys. I don't think I have anything else to say, but I'm gonna go do my bike ride right now. I've at least done my civic duty. And who did I vote for? I'm not even gonna tell you at all. Like I said, I didn't vote for anybody at all. I voted for policies over procedures. And I voted for policies over people and feelings. Let me get it right. Policies over people and feelings. All right, guys, take care. Peace. All right, guys, I'm gonna click back in real quick. I got my ballot. Let me go ahead and drop it off. Okay, there you go. May the best man, woman, party person win. Take care, guys.